Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, we're going to be dealing with one of the topics under the subject semantics, which is about what is meaning. So previously we have talked about that when we talk about semantics, this deals with the meaning of language. So this is about the meaning of words. So at this point, we're going to be dealing with first, what is meaning particularly? So this is the first, I think this is the second topic that I use in my semantic subject. So let's start with what do you mean by meaning? So let's proceed. So what do you mean by meaning? Meaning is basically more of looking into uh, identifying what is the context being talked about. So when we talk about meaning in line with semantics, language without meaning would be like having lungs without air. In short, this is about the content or the function of a certain word basically. So again, that is about the meaning. This is about the meat of a certain word. This is about the content and the function of the use of that word. So let's proceed. So making meaning. Making meaning could be involved in two ways. First, it could be in verbal. Second one, it could be in a non-verbal. Verbal, this is more of the word. When we talk about non-verbal, this is more of your actions that could create meaning also. So communication involves for the two ways, the verbal and nonverbal element. So with nonverbal communication, this definitely affects the words being, coming out to the mouth of people. So with the verbal and nonverbal, people interpret meaning out of the actions and out of also of the words. So according to studies that there are about 6,000 language codes used in the world, meaning different languages, different terminologies like that. And around 40% of those are only spoken, and some of those would have or do not have a written version because they have their own language codes. All right. In short, according to history, those 2,400 are being interpreted and being under or according to study. Therefore, there are still other written version or do not have written version, meaning it's not included into different studies that are being studied by most of the theorists. So language is productive with an infinite number of utterances, and we can make having no limit to a language vocabulary as new words or are coined daily. In short, language is changing and it becomes versatile and flexible as long as I always tell this one to my English classes that a language being spoken by two and be spoken by many could be already a formal type of language or can be classified already as a language itself because it becomes productive, and at the same time it becomes it was utilized it is utilized by a group of people. So therefore, their own vocabularies are being added to the meaning, to making meaning of words, and not only with that, but also added into the world of language. So the process of meaning making in communication really involves the interaction, and that's what we talk about in pragmatics between our sensory our parts of our body, which talks about our neurons sensory system, and meaning is generated from those sensory, from what we hear, what we see, and what we felt out of the word. So communication is really a meaning making process. Without meaning, definitely the language is just a letter without really looking into the expression of the function of it being utilized in a context of communication. So this is really a search for understanding and at the same time a search for relevance of that word and a way of establishing common ground and connecting with another experience. So let's proceed. So how are we going to get meaning? How do we identify meaning? Basically, we have the first one, meaning in terms of its word. So one word would have a definition, would have a meaning out of it. A chair, a table, pretty, beautiful, large, enormous, like that. It has, I mean, the word has its own meaning. However, when you try to use it, communicate it, that word becomes different already in the meaning, and therefore creates a significance in terms of its relationship from that word. So that is what you mean by significance, communicated meaning, and linguistic meaning. Again, a word or a meaning of a certain word differentiates when it is communicated, and with it when it becomes relevant to another word in a different word or a different context. Okay, so let's proceed now. According to Ogden and Richard 1949, we have what we call semiotic triangle. What do you mean by semiotic triangle? Semiotic triangle consists of symbol, referent, and thought. What do you mean by symbol? Symbol is basically more of the word itself. What is the symbolism of that word? All right. So what is the meaning of that one? That is what you mean by symbol. Within that word, for example, table or chair, what does it mean denotative and connotatively? Another one also, another component of semiotic triangle is referent. From that symbol, where can you refer that one? Where can you classify that one? All right. So after that one, looking at the symbol for the for symbol and referent, you can create relationship and what is the meaning of the two. It could be true or it could be falsity. So that is what you mean by the symbolism of symbol and referent. Now, what do you mean by thought? Thought is another ingredient or component of semiotic triangle. Symbol and thought means that there is a causal relationship together with referent and thought. What do you mean by thought? Thought is basically more of what is in your mind that you can create meaning out of the symbol, or you can create meaning out of the referent. Understand? So you try to look at the relationship of the thought and symbol in terms of what is the reason behind your thought and your symbol behind that word. Maybe you have, for example, chair or a table, or for example, a certain story of a table, a certain story of your family. Since you have the experience already, or you have the knowledge of that already, they create causal relationship. You get or you put some meaning out of the symbol because that's your thought about it. That's your experience about it. That's your knowledge about it. That is what you mean by the semiotic triangle. On the other hand, between referent and thought, when you try to have that kind of symbol, and you may refer that word into a certain meaning or a certain family of word, you create already a different or a thought that would create a causal relationship between the symbol and referent. Since, for example, we're talking about tradition, and that's a symbol of the whole, we're talking about maybe penitence. When it is a symbol, we may refer that it is a culture, it is a tradition. So if I am Marinduqueño, I could refer that one already to Moriones Festival. Or I could refer also in terms of puto. And that's my thought. In short, your thought is definitely your background knowledge from the symbol that you are, looking at and also referring to. Understand? So in short, different people may have a different thought depending on the background or schema knowledge of that kind of person. Understand? So let's proceed. Now, in light of this remark, we can redraw the semiotic triangle as in for this kind. So if we have the kind of language, what is our state of mind that we could refer, we could relate to that kind of word or to that kind of language? Remember, different contexts of persons speaking to that language may have a different meaning out of it. Okay, right? So, for example, for us here in Philippines, we really put importance with being a woman. In the other countries, it's not so relevant. In short, we could refer what we wanted to refer to that kind of language depending on what culture are we talking about or who is the person talking that about. Understand? So that is how the semiotic triangle, being relatable. All right. So let's proceed. Now, let's look into how words or how meaning goes in and how word creates meaning. So how word creates meaning basically more of that symbol of word. So what is that symbol of language is basically the lexemes. Lexemes are the variants of single words. So this is the name of the abstract unit which unites all the morphological variants of single word, right? So next one is about we do have different types of lexemes. First, we're trying to get a meaning out of it, these categories of it. So first we have sense, second one is reference, third one is the denotation, fourth one is the connotation. Sense is basically more of what can we refer out of it? What is the meaning based on our senses? Understand? So senses of sight, senses of hearing, sense of smell, everything. That is what you mean by senses. What does the word look like? Understand? It could refer to an object or it could refer to an abstract meaning. That is what you mean by sense. Next one is reference. Reference is the particular thing, person where we could refer that one. Understand? So this is an expression for a particular occasion of use. So for example, the word electric fan, or if, for example, electric fan, we could refer that one as an appliances. For chairs, we could refer that one into furniture. That is what you mean by referent. So referent is basically more of its classification. It's a category from a certain genre, from a certain kind that would help you relate what is the meaning of it. Now, next one, another way to define it is through denotation. Denotation coming from denotation itself, it denotes, meaning the meaning is really the aspect coming from the dictionary. Meaning, word, sense, reference, or denotation have to do with, or which have to do with somewhat more of formality for its character. On the other hand, when we talk about connotation naman, connotation is about what? The entire class of object that it represents. So we try to understand it figuratively, and that's connotation. All right. So another way of understanding the levels of meaning, it could mean two. First one is the sentence meaning. Second one is the utterance meaning. Sentence meaning is basically what is a compositional meaning of that certain sentence. However, when we try to have sets of sentences and then try to use it into communication, meaning into a dialogue, and therefore there is a use already. That is what you mean by utterance. So utterance is the meaning of built up sentences to create a meaning for a certain particular context. So in everyday talk, there are regularly used words, expressions, ironically, metaphorically, insincerely, or non-literal ways. So sometimes the sentence meaning would not help you to understand it further. Therefore, you read most of the sentences, the whole context, so that you would see what is the really meaning of it. Because sometimes it is confusing or vague. Understand? So we have different four ways of breaking the meaning. Of course, first one is meaning as referent or denotation. Second one is meaning as concept. Third one is meaning as brain states. And the fourth one is about meaning and use. Now, what do you mean by meaning as referent or denotation? So for example, one word, when you try to search it in dictionary, this is the particular concept of it. This is somewhat you can refer to. That is what you mean by meaning as referent. On the other hand, when we talk about meaning as concept, this is associated with the object or language term. So this is a family of certain object that you can correlate, or a mental representation of it. For example, a teacher, you can correlate it with students, grades, academe, like that. That is what you mean by mental representation or meaning as concept. Next one is the meaning as brain states. What do you mean by meaning as brain states? This is the understanding of intended or intending a certain meaning. So this is how people understand it based on what they know about the certain scenario or the certain thing. Definitely, you try to understand it based on how your brain said it to you. What is the meaning of that certain context or certain word based on what you perceive on the word itself. Another one is meaning and use. Meaning and use is more of looking into how it was or how it is utilized. So, for example, you try to correlate the words into his actions. That is what we mean by meaning and use. You try to look into connote or create meaning of based on the word being said. You try to connote it with or try to look into the relationship on his actions. That's why if you try to correlate, if do you think the actions speaks the same thing with his words? That is what you mean by meaning and use. So that's how you try to break the meaning. Either try to look it into the referent mental representation, brain states, and also meaning and use. So I guess that would be all, everyone. So I would like to end the discussion with the following quote. In semantics, meaning is very intricate. So you truly need to dance with the languages in terms of its words, phrases, and sentences so that you will unfold the richness of the human expression. This exploration leads you to connect with symbolism and representation that navigates you from the synergies of words, harmony, and reveal the essence of communication, and therefore create a medium of language and make meaning out of the words. So that would be all, everyone. So that would be our discussion of what is meaning, and we're going to have the activity into our face-to-face classes. So that would be all, everyone. Thank you so much and have a nice day.